sweetheart. We got some dancing to do.
Hello everyone and welcome to Cage Fighting. I am Matt Guy, which means only one thing. It is a MusiCast episode. Welcome aboard.
Okay. So you go next. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. Hello everyone. It's me, Andy. Hello.
Did this happen last time? I can't remember.
Can't remember. Like, we don't really talk about these things. We just tend to go into it, don't we? Because we're so simpatico, but obviously not.
Yeah, no, obviously when Daddy's away, it's easy because I'm automatically second. So, hello everyone.
Oh dear. Anyway, no, yeah, it is a musical episode today. So I'm going to talk all things musical and want to start off really with a simple, what are you listening to? So Stu, I'll throw it over to you first because by all accounts, you have a terrible taste in music. So I'd like you to talk to me about what's tickling your earbuds at the moment.
You know what? Because I was away and so I was walking along the beach quite a bit. And I don't really listen to podcasts along. I've done it before where I've been having a morning stroll. But in that kind of place, it's I don't know. It always draws me to listening to music again. So I did have YouTube Premium for a while so I could listen to things properly. And I was listening to a lot of Maneskin. And not just because of the Eurovision thing, because obviously that's the first thing that draw my attention to them, but because I actually really liked them. And then I watched them again at Glastonbury on the BBC stuff, and they were really good. And I thought, okay, I'm going to listen to them properly then. Really, really down with them.
What kind of like crowd did they get for Glastonbury? Were people into them? Like, was it one of those things where everybody gets a big crowd because it's just Glastonbury? Like, were people into them?
They were in one of the inside tent things, which looked very hot and very sweaty, so not very pleasant at all. But they were all their own fans, so it wasn't like, it didn't seem like there were many people there who just kind of wandered in off the street and didn't know what they were getting into because everyone knew all the words to everything. So, and that it was probably the most rock thing at that whole festival by the looks of what I saw. So yeah, they seem to be getting a bit of momentum behind them, and they're still relatively unknown here, other than the obvious few songs. But no, I quite like them, and they are around here in March, I think. But obviously that fixture depends. I might go and see them because I think it's about 30 quid, so pretty cheap.
Yeah, they're like really proper sleazy rock and roll, aren't they? Like with a bit of, it's a bit, don't know what like, it's not quite big band, but it's just a really big sound to them. I remember the song they did for Eurovision was a proper toe tapper as well, really catchy, like well deserving of the win as well. Andy, what are you listening to at the minute? What's tickling your earbuds?
A few things on the go at the moment. Obviously, Ryan Gosling singing Push has been high on the playlist of late. The Bear soundtrack, someone's pulled together a playlist on Spotify of all the songs from The Bear. And like, I've just become completely obsessed with that show. And the music is equally as great when you listen to it. There's a bit of everything in there. There's quite a lot of like singer-songwritery stuff, but then if you throw in stuff like there's some Wilco, there's some Pearl Jam on there, you've got Van Morrison. Like, it's a little bit of everything at the minute. I haven't like nailed down one particular genre this summer. I feel like I want to sample a little bit of everything. So that's been mostly on my playlist. There's been this Bear season 1 and 2 soundtrack for myself. It's been quite nice. Like, I mean, REM, I haven't listened to REM for years. And they've appeared like 3 or 4 times on here. I'm like, okay, yeah, I used to really love Automatic for the People. Such a fantastic album. I haven't listened to it for years. So it's been quite nice reminiscing to some and finding some newer acts as well.
Yeah, I think like my Spotify rap this year will be, it's usually the same kind of artists, maybe in different order. Like randomly Pulp made it in there last year, but it was, it's always the same mix of Jamie T, Limp Bizkit, probably Slipknot or something like that. Whereas this year, all I've done like religiously is listen to Ghost, a band called Pup, who I'm really into at the moment, from Australia. I think they are, or New Zealand. Like real punky meets garage rock kind of sound, a bit like the Hives. They're really fun to listen to. Music videos are very like heavily 8-bit game inspired and stuff as well, which is quite cool.
Check out,
Yeah, I'll put. What's that? Sorry.
100 Gex. Check them out. You'll either love them or hate them, but it sounds quite eclectic from what you were just saying. So 100 Gex, I think, that might tickle your fancy a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. Just listening to a lot of different stuff at the moment, like using the AI DJ tool on Spotify, which has been quite fun, which kind of like pulls together. He'll go back and go, oh, hey, Matt, you were listening to this in 2016. And I go, oh, fuck, mate, was I? And then just like, it's quite fun, and it will then give you new music that it thinks you like based on the stuff you've been. Like, it's quite funny. It's nothing new. Like, I'm sure there's been AI DJs for years. I'm sure like some of just the repeat rewind playlists on Spotify is just a fancy version of AI DJ, or a less fancy version. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good to have a good listen to some different stuff this half of the year, or going into the second half of the year, because I think we're so guilty creatures of habit of listening to just the same stuff that we listened to during our teens. It can be hard to find new music, can't it?
Absolutely. One thing I've quite enjoyed doing on Spotify, you can enhance playlists. So like I've got one from when I went to see Billy Joel. It's all the songs that he performed the night that I saw him. And if you click on the enhanced button on there, it'll add in other tracks as well. And what it's done is it's given me like this deeper understanding of like some rare cut and album tracks that I'd probably never have heard and might not have ever really come across. So I think that's a really handy feature, because you're going in with what you love already, and then it's giving you extra. It's padding it out and it's increasing your knowledge. I think that's a fantastic feature.
I didn't know that function even existed.
I don't know if it's new or old or what, 'cause I'm a relatively new convert to Spotify myself. But yeah, when I've gone into it, it's right towards the top. It just says enhanced, and then it just adds in these extra tracks. So yeah, worth a look.
Have you ever used Spotify on your PS5?
No.
Because you can set it to. I know you can do. Xbox has done this for years. But I did it when I played Rocket League for the first time on PS4, where you could just turn the in-game music off, and have Spotify playing as an app in the background to listen to your own music. But for things like that, where it doesn't really matter what the music is,
That's clever.
It's perfect. And if you're using enhanced, if that's on, I presume it will be. That sounds like the perfect discovery tool for that kind of thing.
I tend to just like either hook it up to my hi-fi system, or put some vinyl on or something. It's very rare that I actually listen to whatever the TV's telling me when I'm playing games, especially something sporty. If it's like God of War where there's a story, it's fair enough. But if I'm playing like FIFA or a wrestling game, then I don't tend to bother with them. I'll just listen to the stereo. But if they've got that feature on there, that's probably worth using that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's on there. There's just no one talks about it, as usual.
Always the way.
Always the way. Well, as is the case with this podcast, we do like to get our questions out to our listeners as well. So, Andy, have you had any musical-related questions from our listeners?
We've had a couple in, and I've got a third question, which isn't music-related. I'll start off with mine, then we'll get to the others. It probably would have fit in on the non-film question we do on the question cast. But earlier on, I was having a coffee and an Oreo, and I wondered, what is the best biscuit? Like, I love an Oreo, and I think that's probably my, A-tier biscuit for me is the Oreo. So, Stu, what's your numero uno?
When we're talking biscuit as in cookie for our American friends.
Yes, yeah.
As opposed, as to what?
No, because they're weird, they
Yeah, isn't a biscuit like a fucking...
like a chicken thing, so you have with a chicken.
Yeah.
It's not going to be any sensible answer, is it? So let's just clear things up like the chips thing. You know what? For years, on a Saturday morning, I used to have just my breakfast on a Saturday morning, watching Soccer AM, was a cup of tea and half a pack of chocolate digestives. That was what I used to have. And then a sausage sandwich after that. But I had them for years. So And you have the classic malted milk, which I'll have like, occasionally now and again.
Such an old man.
I'm nearly 40 years old. You've got to embrace it now. And they're really cheap as well. They're from Aldi and they're really good.
Classic in the sense of like classical music, maybe, but not classic in the sense of like a seminal classic like the Black Album or anything.
You know what? For years, I used to call them moo cows because that's what my nan used to call them. And when I was old enough to go and buy them myself, I asked for a pack of moo cow biscuits. I obviously had no idea what I was talking about. And the ones with the cows on, and obviously malted milks. I'd probably say though, a choice. I mean, you're going like Peter Kay heavy dutiness, but the hobnob, just a classic hobnob, not with the chocolate one, just the normal one because you can eat it on its own. You can eat or Oaties if you go to Aldi. You can eat it on its own. You can eat it in tea. You can have it with a knife and fork. It's really weird, which I have seen people do before. But you can have it as a dessert as well. It ticks every box.
Well, I'm not a big fan of a hobnob. You know what it is? It kind of reminds me of flapjacks, and I don't like the texture of them.
my god!
The texture just no. Matt, what's the best biscuit?
Well, I was leaning towards a hobnob. I do really like a hobnob. Like,
Yes.
I could go 12 rounds with an entire pack of chocolate-covered hobnobs, and I would come out the victor, winning every round. I do like a Garibaldi biscuit.
Okay.
Which are like, I don't know how to describe it for our American friends. They're like, they're sweet, sticky biscuits almost, but they've got raisins or sultanas in them. They're like then I don't know. They are quite nice. They're a bit of an acquired taste, granted. But in recent memory, I've got to say the Biscoff, the Lotus Biscoff biscuit, is next level. Like it just feels a lot more luxury than a hobnob. Like, put it this way, right? I like going camping in my camper van. It's rugged, and it's not always life's. It can be heavy duty. That's the hobnob. I also like going to like posh hotels and go to spa weekends. That's the Lotus Biscoff. I like them both in equal measure. So that's how I feel about them.
Excellent. My mum bought me looks like a Viennetta, but it's Lotus Biscoff. Amazing.
Does a Viennese whirl count as a biscuit?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's shortbread though. It's not biscuit, really.
Still biscuit. You have it with a tea or a coffee, in my case. So for me, that's enough to be a biscuit.
The shit anyway. It doesn't matter.
I had that. Speaking of coffee, I had that clotted cream cold brew thing yesterday.
What did you think?
The first few sips were like orgasmic. They were really good.
Yeah.
But then after that, it was just cold brew coffee that was weakened by a bit of cream. Like it was great. And like I did give a bit of a shake at the start to just zhuzh it up a little bit, so it wasn't like just the cream at the top, coffee at the bottom. It just it was about it was okay, but it definitely wasn't worth like the price of like a craft beer, which is what it was.
I found it was nicer when it was literally cream at the top and coffee at the bottom, because you got that little bit of sweetness from the top and then the bitterness came through. Once it had all mixed together, like you say, it was just a fine cup of coffee after that. Whereas the brown sugar iced espresso out one, that with some cinnamon on the top, the tits, that's fucking amazing.
God.
Yeah, that's what you want.
So meanwhile, I was being a grown up and drinking Guinness at this time of day.
Where do you lie, Stu, on the fact that the drinks that me and Andy were drinking this weekend probably cost at least, if not 2, potentially 3 pints for certain beers at Spoons? Does that enrage you? Does that hurt your feelings?
I mean, if you enjoy it, then fine. I ain't buying it, but I ain't drinking it either. So I don't. It's I'm very much not their clientele, am I? So.
Well, you could be, because I never was. Honestly, I never was. I was a dullard like yourself, Stu. I never used to be into coffee. But now, look at me. Look at me off rose above.
Yeah, but look at the fury in his. I could feel the fury in his face, even though I couldn't see it when I was typing the feather. I had one cappuccino for an entire week.
I just don't know how people can survive with it. Like, at least 80 milligrams per day of just pure caffeine. Yeah. Anyway, that's enough of my question. Andrew Wright, Blinding Wright, has got in contact, so you know it's going to be a good question. Has there ever been a record project, collaboration, etc., that you were absolutely hyped for, but were really disappointed with the end result? And how long did it take you to realise that you were looking forward to was actually a complete letdown? I've got two answers for this. One which will upset me and one which will upset Matt. I'll give you two a bit of thinking time whilst that. The first one is Standing on the Shoulders of Giants, Oasis. The fourth album, I thought this is going to be their big comeback because the third one, I really enjoyed it, but not everyone did. And that ended up being probably the worst album I've ever heard. It was absolute turgid nonsense. It was awful. So, yeah, Standing on the Shoulders. The one that's going to upset Matt, results may vary.
Certainly did.
It did, didn't it? Like, the first three Limp Bizkit albums I really enjoyed. Like, it's not massively my cup of tea, but at that time in my life with college and uni days, that was like, I did get into it. And that came out, and I think I listened to it like 2 or 3 times. I was like, I'm never listening to this again. It was the cover of The Who, Behind Blue Eyes, and that era of Limp Bizkit. I was like, oh, you've well and truly jumped the shark here, lads. So, yeah, that's my my answers. Matt,
it's funny because they had the what is it called, the uncomfortable truth or the uncontrollable truth or something, like an album released after that was really good. And it kind of was like they had to have the like middling success of that album for people to not care about them enough to then release an album that was a little bit different, because they were kind of released of the shackles of popularity as an artist. Do you know what I mean? You know how sometimes like Lindsay Lohan was releasing like in her like Herbie and Mean Girls, and then she had to have a few stinkers to then be able to do some serious stuff that she was actually really good in. That was kind of how like Limp Bizkit were for a couple of albums. Like they had to have results may vary to come out for them to be able to do that.
And in a video with Limp Bizkits as well, oddly enough.
Lohan,
wasn't she?
Sure.
I'm sure she was in one. I can't remember.
I hope so. Even through the crack stage, I kind of had the hots for Lindsay Lohan. I started watching Dark Side of the 2000s on Vice. And I jumped straight to the Lindsay Lohan episode because I was feeling horny. No, because I just wanted to get something that I would know, because some of it's about like shock jockeys that I don't really know much about. Back to the question at hand. Limp Bizkit again featured for me because they signed with, I think it was Lil Wayne's label. That's how like how that shows how much I don't like. I'm not into like proper rap. Lil Wayne's label. And they brought out a song called Ready to Go, which I really liked, even though I knew it was shit, but I really liked it. And I thought, well, okay, this is going to be the start of like this new Limp Bizkit in the modern age. And it just never really came. The release still sucks. So Limp Bizkit still sucks. Recently, it's just like a good album, but it's just not the same. And I really thought that they're going to turn a corner now, like they're going to get current rappers on, and it's going to be like drag them back into the mainstream, and it never really happened. And I saw them not that long ago in the Academy, and like this, you're never going to get like a Springsteen 3-hour show out of Limp Bizkit. Like I understand that, but it was kind of like when I saw Slipknot download, it very much felt like just going through the motions. You know what I mean? Like someone that's been doing it for so long that it's not really the show that it once was, and that's kind of where I am with them now.
I get you. Stu, anything that you were looking forward to and then just massively let down by?
You mentioned it there, roundabout way. Be Here Now. I was. It was the first time, obviously, because I was already. What's the Story Morning Glory was already out by the time I was kind of cognizant, before it dropped into a lap, so to speak.
Same here.
On cassette first and then CD later. So this was the first one where reading Enemy, and not so much Kerrang then, but definitely reading Enemy and kind of being up with it all, and there was posters and everything. And I remember we were in, the week it came out, we were in Wales. It must have been a holiday because I bought it from Woolworths in Aberystwyth, and there was a queue there's a queue there, and it was the middle of the afternoon, and we waited it because I said to my mum, "Oh, we need to go over town to get the to get some stuff from the Lidl, I think, or it might have even been Netto. Then I couldn't remember. But I said, "Oh, can we go this day because I need to go to Woolworths to get something?" She went, "Okay." Never questioned it. So I remember going over there, and they were saying like unofficial poster packs and all this kind of stuff. And obviously I couldn't listen to it then until we got back because we was in the caravan. The caravan didn't have a CD player. The car didn't have a CD player. So I was sitting there just looking at this CD. And when I got home, I thought, what the fuck is this? But with time gone past, I mean, I do quite enjoy that album there. And like you, I think Stand on the Shoulder of Giants is probably the weakest one. But at that time, I think because the build-up, because it was that first one for me, and for it to be that, and some of the weird and experimental stuff and things like Magic Pie and
yeah.
But then you look at it and some of the stuff on there, like Stand By Me, is amazing.
Good Dirty Shirt, banger. Yeah.
Didn't appreciate it at the time at all.
I think I'm the only person who loves that album from day one. And ironically enough, it was released on the 21st of August, 1997. So today in podcast world. So yeah, I'll tell you that one comes up. The other question we had is from a long-term collaborator of our own, Mr. Ash Dolan. What is the best city in the world based on the acts they've produced? Manchester for Oasis, Washington area for Nirvana, or Liverpool for the Zootons, for example? Stu, what's the best musical city?
I mean, I was going to say, the fact that you had the whole thing with Manchester being a thing, that was very much my life, really. The Stone Roses and even a bit of the Carpet stuff, because one of the guys who used to go to the match with, he used to play it in his van. Yeah, for our age, it has to be Manchester.
Matt, what about yourself? What do you think?
I've got to go across the pond to Los Angeles. Like from what I grew up with musically, there's just so much to come out of LA. Just to name just talking big hitters: Guns N' Roses, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica, The Doors, Jane's Addiction, The Eagles, and then going down to things that people don't necessarily like but are still popular: Megadeth, 30 Seconds to Mars, Tool, A Perfect Circle, and then into bands that nobody likes but still are huge: Black Eyed Peas, Maroon 5. There's just absolutely loads. Rage Against the Machine don't fall into that category, but they were from Los Angeles as well. There's just absolutely loads that came out of LA. And I don't know if it's just right place, right time, but this is going from 60s all the way up to now that it's just a constant city that reinvents music. Weezer as well. Absolutely loads from LA, and it's had a huge impact on rock and roll as don't get me wrong, indie music hasn't really benefited particularly well from LA, and we're into a lot of indie music, but generally across the board for rock and roll, I think LA has a lot to we should be grateful for.
I think, unsurprisingly from me, I'm going to the East Coast, and it's New York City for me. I mean, you've got bands like the Velvet Underground, Talking Heads. They very much influenced bands which then came up, like your Oasis and stuff like that. So that big sound, I think, and the lyricisms from bands like that, I think, influenced someone like Oasis. But then you've got Blondie, New York Dolls, The Strokes, even some of your softer ones like Simon and Garfunkel, obviously Billy Joel, who I've already mentioned, the Beastie Boys, Big E. For me, it covers the most amount of different genres that I like a little bit of everything. And New York gives people a little bit of everything. So I think that's probably the most influential one, personally speaking.
You could even argue disco as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Studio 54, is it? I can't remember.
Yeah, 54, yeah.
I was going to say 52, but I wasn't sure if that was right.
I think it is.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously that was obviously a massive time. There's a really good show that was about that era of New York called... It had James Franco in, so if you don't know James Franco, don't watch it. It's James Franco and Maggie Gyllenhaal. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but Google those two people and you'll find the show. And it's about the gay scene, the disco scene, all that stuff in New York in like the late 70s, early 80s. Excellent show. But yeah, I can't remember what it's called. So.
Sounds like my street, to be fair.
So yeah, thank you very much for sending those questions in. They're very much appreciated. Matthew, back to yourself.
So, it's not. I don't know if this is a hot take. I kind of need you guys to tell me if it is a hot take or not. That it is the question, really. But I've been getting really into Ghost, right? And for those that have never listened to Ghost, they're incredibly theatrical. So their stage show's great. Their entire band, apart from the lead singer, are like nameless ghouls, I think they call. They all wear the same masks, completely black suits, everything about them. So you don't know who they are. And then you've got the main singer, who is different iterations of like a clerical figure. So he's like Popper, whatever his face. And each album he changes costume. It's a different sound, a different album. Fine, not got a problem with that at all. But I've never known, and bearing in mind I've listened to Metallica for pretty much all my life, I've never known a band that are so heavy on their merchandising that, like, you'll see on their emails come through, message from the clergy, and it'll be another t-shirt released, or they've just released figurines of this tour's figurines, die-cast models or whatever of this. Everything that you could think that you could buy, they sell. Like, it's a huge like racket, the stuff that they sell. Like, and we wouldn't raise an eyelid if this was a computer game as a franchise, or a film that was franchised, or characters, Star Wars, anything else. Is it any different if it's music? Is it any different? Should it be exactly the same, or does it rub you up the wrong way as it is slightly rubbing me up the wrong way?
Depends what you want, because if you look at it in the modern era with, like you just mentioned, YouTube Premium, Spotify, Amazon Music, the Apple one, they ain't getting money from album sales, are they? They're not getting money from single sales. Mm-hmm. So if they have to make it through touring, and you can see that because by the cost of gigs and things, if they can supplement it with these little trinkets and whatever and little figures that people might want to buy, then why not? It's not very punk, is it? But then we're in 2023. Why would it be punk? I think being punk is making a bit of money for yourself, really, at this day and age. So, I mean, I'm sitting in there drinking tea out of a New York Jets mug. I've got a Jets cap over there, and the whole room's full of Walls things. And it is the same. It is the same as sports. It is the same as games. It is the same as films. I mean, you got a whole shelf there of Marvel stuff, Star Wars stuff. There's a Mario in the corner. And if there was Oasis things of little Liam and Knowles, they'd be up there as well. So I get it. I get what you're saying. It doesn't kind of sit right because we're old and it's not the done thing. But if you take it back to people in their 20s who are getting into this stuff for the first time, and then they get push notifications of, this Ghost diecast figure, limited edition, or they sell it as a Funko Pop and Ash goes mental and buys it day one, then yeah, I don't have a problem with it, really.
So from my point of view, I don't necessarily disagree. This is what I'm saying. I don't know if it is a hot take or not. I don't even know how I feel about it, really. But I think of all of the things we've mentioned there, gaming, we don't feel any relationship with developers. There's no give or take. We buy a game, that's it. Films, I think we feel closer to musical artists than we do actors, and then we do other things, because it's so much more personal music to me than film and TV and games. So that's why then when it becomes more of like a give and take and like a financial transaction, it hurts more emotionally in the massive wanky way that I've just explained that. But does that make any sense to you, Andy, at all? Am I off the mark there?
100%. Just first thing, Liam and Noel trinkets, they do have Funko Pops and they're in that room. But anyway, moving on to the question, you can quite clearly see from my camera the amount of crap merchandise that I've got all around me. I'm very much into collectibles and stuff like that. there's a very much a divide between, when it comes to film, the way I would describe it is you've got popcorn films and you've got artistic films. I'm okay with buying a lot of Batman stuff, but if they did an Oppenheimer one,
Yeah,
a little bit dirty buying that, because there's a difference between the art of it and the artifice of it almost. And I feel that with musical artists, there is that dividing line between being like a legitimate artist and being in it for the money. And I'm sure they're all in it for the money, realistically speaking. But like you say, there is that emotional core that you have with someone. Like, I wouldn't expect to see Bob Dylan shilling shit, whereas I would expect, no offense, but I would expect Metallica to do it because they love that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there's the ones that appeal to the masses, and then there's the musicians who do it for themselves. But if you happen to like it as well, then 2 thumbs up. And I feel like there's that line between the two. So I remember saying to both of you when I went into Primark recently, and there was a shitload of Nirvana stuff. And it's like, yeah, there's a reason why Kurt Cobain killed himself. And this is sort of why, because he would have hated this. And if he was alive, there's absolutely no way that he would have allowed that to have happened. And I think he probably sits very much on your shoulder with this kind of argument. He's very much with you. Whereas I would expect someone like, say, Dr. Dre, for example, I think he would sell a lot of shit to try and make as much money as possible. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not criticising that approach to it, but it just makes it a little less personal for me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, I'm sitting here in a Peep Show T-shirt that was made by like a third-party company that has nothing to do with the show, and it's just, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, yeah, I know, silly. Okay, so let's move on to the questions then for this episode. Question number 1. Who was the last, or is the last, if they're still around, last great indie/rock band that begins with the? So you couldn't, it was 10 a penny in the late noughties, early 10s. Like, there were bands, the this, the that. My band was a the that I was in. You couldn't move for them, but I feel like we've slowly phased out of that. If any of you say the 1975, through your PC and come out of your red and punch you in the schnoz. No, but who was the last great indie or rock and roll band, Stu, that had the in their name?
I mean, I went very indie with this, and the first thing for all these questions today, I've gone instinct and what first thing that popped into my head, and it wasn't 1975, thankfully, because that should be in no one's head really. The Cortinas, and I know he's very much of that time. But you still see them, and going back to what I said about Glastonbury again, how brilliant they were, and how many people were completely into them. And yeah, it was late 2000s, early 20-teens, whatever that period of time was, in their heyday. But they still seem to get audiences of the same thing, and you still get some like the opener and that Kiss and things like this that even I listen to, and I'm not, as we said before, I'm not fully into this scene anymore, but the Cortinas are low-key brilliant, and no one ever talks about them, but then when you bring them up, everyone always says, oh yeah, they're all right.
Yeah, they're one of those that's like gone under the radar for a lot of people, but I think if you're into the Cortinas, you're really into them as well. I think they've got like a real core following that absolutely love them. What about you, Andy? Who comes to mind when you think of this question?
I think this isn't my answer, but I think the band that sort of came in, and I don't think they're great, but they have become loved by everyone and probably ended the fad, is the Arctic Monkeys. They've gone on and had this huge career, and they've become massive. They're not, I don't really like them all that much myself. They're fine personally, but I feel like they're probably the last of the bands. The ones who I think have probably made or who have stood by who they were throughout would be the Cribs. Like, they've always been this. I mean, they started out by saying they were like a mid-fi band from Wakefield, and even now, when we're like 15 years on, probably even longer since the first album, they're still exactly that mid-fi band from Wakefield. They haven't sold out, even though the fact that they're quite big in America. Like they're loved in Chicago, and like where Sonic Youth would be, that's their market very much. So they've become quite a big band, but they've never sold out. They've remained true to who they were. Whereas I think other bands sort of chased the dollar a little bit more than the Cribs did. And I think the Cribs musically have always been outstanding. They've tried to do different things whenever they've had different albums. They haven't just sort of rested on their laurels and appealed to the people who've been there since the start. They've tried to have a new sound every now and again and grow as a band, which I think that's a fantastic thing to do. And if nothing else, Johnny Marr, for a laugh, was like, I'm just going to join your band for a year. So, yeah, Johnny Marr just fucking joined the Cribs for an album and was excellent and then fucked off. It was brilliant, really good.
Yeah, again, another great choice, to be fair. Another one of those core like bands that made that UK indie scene just unrivaled for like a decade, where musically, the UK, the UK, let's have it, I suppose the View were around for a bit. The world looked at us again musically to kind of reinvent what was going on at the time. I am going, I suppose it is across the pond. They are very big here. And go with the Hives. As it stands, the Hives are number 2 in the UK album charts with The Death of Randy Fitzsimmons, their new album. Again, a band relentlessly determined to not change their style or sound for anyone. Like, you could pick up any of their albums and kind of know exactly who you're dealing with and know exactly the sound, and it's just 2 to 3 minute punchy rock tunes, garage rock tunes throughout maybe a 30 to 45 minute album, consistently at the top of their game. One of the best live acts you'll see. Sold out civic size venues their entire career. They've done exactly the same now. They're playing Wolverhampton in the end of March. And it's just, I just think that I think people see the Hives as just a band that just have catchy singles. When you listen to their albums, they're absolute crackers from like start to finish. They really are. They're really just, they're a lot more than their like simplistic nature makes them out to be. Like, there's nothing really complicated about what they do, but they're just very good at what they do.
Mm.
And I think that they didn't really fit in anywhere. Like, they didn't fit it. They were constantly played at indie clubs, where they're not part of that the indie bands that talked with a regional or sung with a regional accent, like the Pigeon Detectives. But they have this like really weird respect relationship with the Strokes, and the Strokes were like, no, we're just we're just an American Hives, and blah, and backwards and forwards. They never really fit anywhere, the Hives, but I just think they've been consistently brilliant. As a sidebar, I'm looking at the top album charts. Like, people clearly don't buy albums anymore, because I'm looking down and like, I was like, oh, surely these aren't like new releases. Gold Greatest Hits by ABBA has been in the charts for 1,111 weeks, and it's number 19 in the charts. Arctic Monkeys AM is still in the charts 518 weeks later, number 21. There's just some absolute mad albums that have been in here for like decades now that just are still being bought month after month. Or I don't know if it's something to do with streaming as well, but yeah, it's just crazy.
Is this like how like Grand Theft Auto 5 is still in the top 10 every month, and it came out like 11 years ago? Like, because you're getting people who age up and people who are like 18 now who they listen to ABBA or they watch Mamma Mia and they get, oh yeah, that sounds okay, and then they get the album somehow. Maybe there is something like that, because these things are timeless, that it's just one more person buys it.
It is like, interesting though, because who buys physical media like CDs now? Like, it's very unheard of, isn't it? I don't even know if HMV like have the album charts anymore. I know like towards the back they have the albums in general, but I know the one in Wolverhampton, they've got the DVDs at the front, but I don't think they've got a CD chart as such.
Yeah, I'm not sure. There's probably a reason why the Hives album's number 2, because I bought the physical album to get a pre-sale code for the tour. They know what they're doing, but yeah, there we are. Okay, great. So we'll move on to question number 2. I want to start with you, Stu, because I feel like you've been to the majority of I think you've been to more kind of social and working men's clubs than me and Andy combined. And I reckon mine and Andy's songs will eliminate all working men's clubs from existence. But the question is, top 3 songs you'd eliminate from history, Stu?
Again, I know I'm expecting the backlash, so I don't care really. And again, I had 5 on my brainwave that straight away when I read it this morning. Obviously, James Blunt, You Were Beautiful, because it's awful. It's just fucking awful. It's that period of time. It was everywhere. You couldn't escape it. And the fact that he owns it now and takes the piss out of himself on Twitter, yeah, excellent. But at least we're not hearing it. But then he'll bring it up, and then it gets in your head again, even though it hasn't been fucking played. So if that had never happened, this torture would never have to happen anymore, would it? So, James Blunt, bye. The second one, Orinoco Flow by Enya. Shit. Just shit. And the other one, which is probably going to be a bit controversial, Eurythmics, Sweet Dreams, any of these?
Oh my God.
That is absolutely scandalous.
Well,
I hate that song. I've always hated that song. I don't know. I don't mind some of their other stuff. That song, as soon as the first couple of beats start, look, nope, skip.
Oh.
Even on 80, which we used to have when we used to have CD spools for away days, because obviously we had nothing else, and you had your leather binder with all the albums. So we had 80s Mania was in there. That was the only one that never got played, because I'd hear the first few bars, even putting it on random, because I had a Walkman and it could do that. As soon as it comes on, nope, skip. It gets into my soul. I hate it with a passion. I don't know why, and I'm not saying it's a bad song, but for me, I do not like that song at all.
So you used to have an album of 80s hits and a bit of Blue for the Road.
Yeah. Well, Blue for the Road came later, because that's is it around it? I have still got it somewhere, and then I had a PlayStation branded one as well for the games, but obviously they were CDs anyway. Yeah, we had our CD players being gold separate next to each other, and then the Blue for the Road came with the DVD era, which was not mine either. So,
You know, Sweet Dreams, right? I'm gonna put this right. Just because, like, now it's a song that probably just like gets played in pop world, and it's a bit of like nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have been around when that song first hit, like clubs and nightclubs. No wonder there's like we've got a population crisis of too many people, because that's one of the sexiest songs I've ever heard in my entire life. And people are just, imagine walking through it, just being there in a club, you're hearing it for like the first time, and you're dancing to it like it's a new song. It would just been amazing. Like, it's amazing now to listen to.
Annie Lennox has got a proper sexy voice when she sings. Like, yeah, I could imagine birds were getting pregnant just fucking listening to it, because it was that kind of song. I'm genuinely disgusted with this gent.
Shocking. Andy, what about you? I've got a feeling our 3 could be exactly the same.
Probably not. I tried to go like super serious with mine.
hang on. I'll just say, I'm guessing that Sweet Caroline's going to be one of them, and potentially, Hey Jude. But carry on.
Oh no, I love the Beatles. They'd never be on there. Like Matt potentially would have Hey Jude on there, in fairness, yeah. So I've gone with Biggie Smalls, Who Shot Ya. So after Tupac was shot, and then when he went into prison and stuff, when Who Shot You was released, Tupac saw that as a song about him, a song about Biggie taking the piss out of what had happened to him. And obviously that created such a ruction that ended up with 2 very young men being murdered. And if that song wasn't released, I'm not saying that shit wouldn't have happened, but maybe it wouldn't have happened the way it did, and at least one of them might still be with us. So I would quite like to remove that song from history, because I think the world would be a better place, or potentially be a better place without it. The next song, this one, you'll probably both understand the reason why, but it is Creed, My Sacrifice. So if you were a wrestling fan in the 2000s, My Sacrifice was all over WWE TV at that point. They'd very much leaned into this Creed thing. And I remember searching everywhere to try and find this Creed album for this one song. And the only album I could find, It's something Play. It was called. I can't remember exactly what it was. Something Play in the title, and it had like "with arms wide open" and all that crap on it. And it was like 20-something pounds imported in Virgin Megastores in Merry Hill. I remember buying it. It was fucking shit. But I only bought it because I liked this one, not even a song by Creed, because all we had was a 1-minute clip of wrestlers hurting themselves to this one song. So I bought it, and I think if I'd have never got that, I'd have never bought that album, and they'd have never darkened my doorstep. So I'd have been quite happy to get rid of everything by Creed, to be honest, but specifically My Sacrifice.
I was going to say that. Oh, Creed a bit of a joke.
Yes, they're Christian rock, and they're sort of Nickelback, but not as well known. Like, everyone hates Nickelback, but people who really know about music, they really fucking hate Creed.
Because I know they were on the soundtrack to Titan AE After Earth as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was, I think that was one of the first times hearing it properly. And I thought, this sounds like someone doing a bad impression of someone else.
They're all.
Where go?
Yeah, exactly it. The third song, this might be my controversial track. It is I Believe in a Thing Called Love by The Darkness.
Oh, my God.
And it's not because it's a bad song, because it's fine. I don't love it, but it's fine. But this was the song where indie and rock sort of moved from Blast Off for us Wolverhampton lot to Down the Waterfront at Merry Hill. Like, it went from being, us scuzzy fuckers to Chab Central.
Let's see.
And it kind of ruined The Darkness, because before that they had some really good songs. Permission to Land's a great album. And I Believe in a Thing Called Love was so big and it was so ginormous that they kind of crumbled under the weight of this song, and they never really got back on track after that. So I think it ruined them, and it sort of ruined indie music for us as well a little bit. So that's why I'd get rid of that one.
And Justin Hawkins now does the theme tune to a CBB show.
To see, really.
Yeah.
It wasn't it?
Never watched it, but okay.
And he did a thing with King of Our Hearts, Sam Ryder as well. Last year, it might have been the New Year's Eve countdown thing. Where he probably was. But that he was excellent at that. And obviously he's cleaned himself up now a bit, but that does make sense. But we wouldn't have got Don't Let the Bells End then either if that never existed. So
I'd be okay with that shit.
They're playing Wolverhampton as well. They're doing Permission to Land in full. I never got my soft ticket. It's sold out. I'm going to have to try and get my hands on one. I'm going to do my level best to try and get one close to the time. Look, it was like a ticket resale or something like that if I can. Right, strap yourself in, Stu. You're correct. First of all, Sweet Caroline can get in the bin. It's the worst, right? I'm by no means of, as you know, not a flag waving, very patriotic person. But if there's one thing that makes me really dislike being from the UK, it's Sweet Caroline when it comes on everywhere, just fucking, and it's always the worst of people that sing along to it. It's never people you respect. It's always the worst people. Do you know what I mean? There's no wedding that's made better by having Sweet Caroline on or anything like that.
You know what I hate about Sweet Caroline? It's the ba 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 bit. Oh, just fuck off. Just play in traffic, will you?
Yeah, it really is. Number 2, Don't Stop Believing by Journey.
Well,
but that was in Glee.
Yeah, no, I think I will say before you say it, before Glee, when it was an underground hit and people didn't know about it, I think Glee did more bad things for that song than good. In the end of the day,
yeah, I'd agree.
When I hear it and it starts, it makes my blood curdle. It really does. I'm like, oh, I'm in for 5 minutes of hell here. And it infiltrates places that I usually see as safe spaces, like the Gifford and stuff like that. It comes on in places that you think you're safe from this drivel, and then you'll hear it come on, and then it's always on when people are pissed and they think that they can hit the high note at the end. It's just not the case. People can't do it. And I really dislike it. I really can't stand it. It makes me upset. And the third one, I was going to go for... There was two choices. I was initially going to go for Come On Eileen, but I've took that out of the circulation in place of Is This the Way to Amarillo. But what could have easily have got in there is the Cha-Cha Slide. Basically, anything that requires a choreographed dance move can get in the bin. Like, I think they're the worst. They're the absolute worst of, like, you know, when you see memes about like white people at weddings, like they're absolutely right. Like when people sit in a boat and do the fucking thing side to side.
Well, great though.
No, it's not, Stu. It's not. They're laughing at us, and rightly so. Like it's the worst of us. Like
they can, but it's funny.
No, it's not. There is it. It's not. But yeah, like Amarillo, especially like when then Peter Kay did his thing and did their video. I know it was for children in need, but those children can stay in need, as far as I'm concerned. Like I just, it's awful. Like there is so much good music from like back in the day that your parents like Motown or the soul, loads of stuff like that. But Amarillo, get in the bin.
You know what?
We'll come back.
When Nate came over here and I took him up the Legion on that Saturday night. We went in and it was they had the usual Saturday night disco on in there as you'd expect in Clubland, and then obviously everything had to stop at 9 o'clock for the bingo. And just to look at his face, he's this is amazing. These places actually exist. Well, yes, they do.
Would Amarillo be on that list if it wasn't for that Peter Kay song?
I don't think.
I don't think it would.
I don't think it would, and it's not like I'm not even like a Peter Kay hater because even though he's as broad as it gets as a comedian, I think he's pretty funny. So it's not even a Peter Kay thing. It's just it embodies that. All the weddings I've been to that have just been awful musically, and I don't know. There's just something about Amarillo that really rubs me up the wrong way.
I think. For me, it's the fact that everyone can do that. Let's all walk and pretend we're in the video. It grates on me. I think that's what it brings. Or the people's joy just grates on me.
There's you could throw Glad All Over into this as well. If that somehow managed to permutate the world of the over 55 white woman, this is the target audience of these wedding dances. Let's be honest. If for somehow Dave Matthews Band somehow managed to do this, that would be played to fuck because it's played at every wedding anyway. Everyone always loves it, but it hasn't got the massive appeal or a dance move to it at all yet. But it'll only take an advert. It'll only take John Lewis to mess our lives up again, and this is what happens.
So you can throw "Proud Mary" by Tina Turner in that as well. That can go.
It's a banger of a song, but the reaction it causes, I get it.
Basically, these two old bastards don't like fun at working men's clubs, and this is the problem here.
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't ever want to be at people's anyway. So, yeah, you're right.
Slight sidebar. So this is like a forbidden thing that we're not going to talk about. So I'm not going to name the thing. But I'm part of like a ticketing website that like will sell you tickets that aren't selling very well and stuff. So it's like the bands don't play to nobody. You'll get like heavily discounted tickets and stuff like that. And I had one the other day for Dexys Midnight Runners. Except they're not called Dexys Midnight Runners anymore. They're just called Dexys, presumably because of some, I don't know, one of the members must have left or something like that. And they did something where you get the description on the email. So strange. I was like, you never hear this. This is really weird. And no wonder they aren't selling any tickets because they say as proud as punch, we're going to play our new album in entirety. Like, who the fuck cares? Like,
that's just like 7 Days Too Long and Come On Eileen on repeat.
Just get out of there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I thought that was really weird. But yeah, I mean, yeah, no wonder they're not selling, but that's one of those things, I guess. But let's go with question number 3, the final question. What is the hardest instrument, in your humble opinion, to master, Andy?
I mean, I think probably piano. Because I feel like I sort of taught myself how to play ukulele. I think I could graduate onto playing guitar semi-okay if I put the effort in. Because when you look at the chords, they tell you where to put the fingers and everything, and you can read is it tabs? Is it called tabs where it's got
Tablature. Yeah.
Tablature. And I think you could read that a lot easier. You don't really get that with playing the piano, do you? Let's be honest. And like, I think I could have a good crack on the drums. I know that sounds really fucking arrogant, so I've never tried it, but it's keeping time. And again, I feel like you could teach yourself that in a not insubstantial amount of time. Whereas I think for the piano, it's so big and grand and huge and all-encompassing. I feel like you could quite easily get lost in the keys, whether you're, one octave too low, one octave too high. I think to master it, that is the, 100,000 hours you need to master something. That's going to take all of that time to do it. Whereas I think everything else, give it a couple of weeks, you could be reasonable.
I think outside
you could have a base.
I think outside of doing chopsticks on a piano, like you're pretty lost after that. Like,
yes,
to actually get something that resembles anything remotely decent, I think takes a lot of time. Stu, what about you?
I used to be able to play keyboard all right at school, but you are talking a long, long time ago, and you are doubling, maybe trebling it when you graduate to piano. So it's the bit. It seems daunting because there's so many keys. I know exactly what you mean, and where do you even start? But a lot of the things that I thought about, and I like things like violin, it just blows my mind. But again, with enough practice, you could probably be shit, but passable. The only thing I could think of that if you can't do it, you can't do it, and that's singing. Because I can't sing at all. And there's no way anyone can train me to sound any good at all, because I've got this voice. It can't change. I can go all Rick Astley and start going all deeper, and it won't work. It just won't work. Regardless of many, many hundreds of hours of training, I'll never be able to sing. If I had many thousands of hours of practice on a piano or a violin or a guitar or whatever, I'd probably still be shit, but I could do it. Singing, I just can't.
I think anybody can be trained to sing to a decent level. I think as long as, and I know that you have projection. Projection is half, is a lot of the battle. I think you can be sung to be taught. You can be trained to be. I think you just need to find your style and find the pitch in which you sing at. I think that's like. Yeah. I think people like sing very flat, and that will be the problem. But I think for you to be able to find your pitch, I think someone could teach you how to sing.
It's not something you could teach yourself, though. Yeah, 100% that. But I do think you can be taught how to do it. Yeah, I agree.
Even Victoria Beckham could be taught how to sing, and she was in a band.
She wasn't that bad. I've got her album over there.
Well, I initially wanted to defend the Drummers Union here and say that, like, to master it, it's not a case of being able to, like, because, drum music fits on a stave just like any music. So you can read sheet music for drums, that's fine. And to be able to, like, have the capacity to be able to be in time and keep everything going and have the reflexes and the reactions to be able to do it. But then I think actually, like, an entry level, like, it's not that difficult. But I think the violin, even at entry level, is, like, so awful, like, as a noise if you're not getting it right. Then you see people like doing like is it the Stradivarius? Is that the name of the famous violin or whatever?
I think so.
That, like, you see what people do with, like, a violin, and then you think of, like, the cultural impact of, like, that as an instrument as well. Like, all of the amazing film scores and stuff and horrors and everything else that's had the violin. I think that's probably up there with what, for someone to be able to be an absolute master at it, it's got to be really tough, because when you get it wrong, it sounds so wrong. But when, like, you get other instruments wrong, you can kind of get away with it, I think. So I think it would be the violin for me.
It's a good point. I didn't even consider, like, any orchestral things, but yeah, like you say, it only takes you to be slightly off and it ruins the whole thing because it's so clearly wrong when it's wrong. I think you can, if like a guitarist plays a wrong note, you can sort of muddle through it. But if you're slightly out on a violin, you really do notice it, don't you?
Oh, definitely. But there we go. But that is the MusiCast episode come to a screeching end. Hope you've enjoyed it, everybody listening at home. As always, at Cage Fighting Pod on the socials. Thank you very much for getting in touch. We do like doing these kind of different episodes every once in a while. Stu, I'm sure we'll do a games cast before too long as well. So if there's any kind of themes that you'd like to hear, we're at your beck and call. Get in touch with us. And if you want to even come on or know someone that you think would like to be a part of an episode, or maybe someone within the Wolverhampton scene or beyond that would like to come on, let us know and we'll make it happen. But yeah, thanks a lot for your time. I hope you've enjoyed it. And for me, ciao. Well, from Andy, if you'd like to say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us this week. Just a note on next week's Picture Pod episode, we are watching Industrial Symphony #1, The Dream of the Brokenhearted. It is available on YouTube, which probably tells you the level we're pitching that one at. But yeah, give it a watch. Join us next week. Thank you very much for joining us. We love doing this for you. So yeah, cheers. See you later. Be excellent to each other.
I mean, there's one thing that you won't be having if you partake in watching that, and that is Sweet Dreams. In that case, I would listen to the Eurythmics. Goodbye.
Absolutely, yeah. Do give it a watch, honestly. It's something else. You'll hear it next week. Anyway, but for now, remember to party on, dudes.